In this video, I'm going to walk you through why every overnight success that you see online is always years in the making. Every day, you and I log onto social media and we are constantly exposed to people achieving extremely fast results in their online coaching businesses. You'll see coaches go from $0 to $10,000 a month in 4 weeks. You see other coaches that appear to be making hundreds of thousands of dollars a month, but it looks like they've only been at things for a couple of months, which starts to get into your own head, and you can question whether or not you're actually cut out for this. You can start to think like, all of these other people are successful, I'm not successful, there must be something wrong with me. And in this video, we're going to dig a lot deeper into this specifically so you can remove some of the pressure that you're applying to yourself. Now, if we haven't met before, my name is Josh Bowers and I've been in the online coaching space since December of 2019, so I've been around for a little while. I've made about $1.5 million in cash collected over the last few years across 2 different coaching offers. The first one was called the Bikini Body Project. I had 300 girls go through this program, and at its peak, I had 100 active clients with no team supporting it besides myself. My second business was then called Freedom Coach, which is what I do now, and it's helping other online fitness coaches scale their businesses using conversion content and hyper-targeted ads. Now, the purpose of these videos is to walk you through all of the things that have worked for me over the years, all of the things that haven't, and what I'm currently doing in my business now, and also with my clients too. So, in this video, the main thing that I'm going to run you through is my own timeline with online coaching. And I want you just to sort of really grasp how long it's taken me to get to where I am. And I'll be the first to say, before anyone potentially gets in the comments and says you're not even doing that well, I understand that I'm nowhere near the top of the game. And to be honest, I don't really have a desire to be at the top of the game. However, I know that I have come a very far way compared to most people in this online coaching space. So I want to go all the way back to the beginning and walk you through some of the stages that I've been through, some of the highs, some of the lows, so you can take some of these gems and apply them into your life, your business, and obviously your mindset, especially when it comes to how fast you might be seeing success within your business. So if we jump into things, I got into personal training in 2015. I don't know when it was. I think it was about February. Before this, I was actually a mechanic, funnily enough. So I left school when I was 16. My dad put me straight into a trade, which was becoming a mechanic. And I was really good at that from an early age of 16. By the age of, I think it was like 20 or 19, I was a fully qualified mechanic, which was signed off 1 year early. I got into my full-time trade, started doing that. And then I had this sort of realization one day. There was an older guy across the workshop floor facing me who had been working in the same workshop for the last 20 years. His hands were all busted up and he just looked tired. He looked so tired. And then I had this realization of like, well, I'm 20 years old. I'm already on the maximum salary that I can be making right now. Is that just me now done for the rest of my life? And it sat with me for a little while, and then I had another epiphany. And then I decided just to quit. I pretty much quit on the spot. Like, this is the condensed version. I quit on the spot, went and studied personal training full time, maxed out a credit card and got into some pretty bad debt from that, which was I look back and I don't regret it, but I do at the same time with the amount of debt that I actually ended up with. It was like $30,000 in debt that I ended up with after just fully quitting my job. So, I look back on it now and I'm like, I don't regret it, but during that time, it was horrible. And long story short, became that personal trainer in 2015, started doing that and worked at a couple of different boutique gyms during that time frame. And then I jumped into a big box gym it was roughly 2018, I think, that I jumped into a Fitness First, it was called. And during the back end of my time as a PT, I started to notice this whole online thing. A few people were running ads and marketing to me about online coaching and this and that. And I was extremely skeptical way back in the day. Mind you, this is like 2019. This is when online coaching was just sort of becoming a thing. And this is like where people were doing like PDF programs and stuff like that for online coaching. Like, it was crazy times all the way back then. But I started to notice it and I was like starting to watch some ads, looked into a few different mentors, wasn't still sure. And then I kept getting retargeted by what would then become my first mentor's ads. And at first I thought this guy was just your typical sales, snake. I was just like, nah, there's something wrong with this guy. I think I opted into something and then All of a sudden, the retargeting ads were hitting me harder, and then I was like, all right, I'll just book a call. Booked a call, jumped in on the mentorship program that they had, spent 10 grand on my first mentorship. Whoops, that's a 0. Let's do a 10. And that basically changed the entire trajectory of my entire life, and I'm very thankful for that. So I started building out the Bikini Body project in December of 2019. That's when I say that I started online coaching, because it actually was. I had online clients and things like that at that point, but nothing serious. Then I launched the Bikini Body project in March of 2020. If you know that date, especially if you're an Australian, this was during the exact time of COVID-19. And basically what happened is I woke up to an email one morning during March, and the gym that I worked at had been closed down. Government said all gyms are to be shut, can't be spreading COVID-19. Obviously bullshit, but story for a different time. So my income went from about $10,000 a month to 0 overnight. Fortunately, I had been building this online business for basically 3 months at this point, absolutely grinding my butt off. And like, something that I do when I emphasize here when I launched the Bikini Body project is this is when like I really started to get serious about this, because I could see that this was actually turning into something that actually had some potential. And if you're fresh to online coaching, you would know what I'm talking about. There's that lingering doubt in the back of your mind, like, is this even doable? Like, can I actually pull something like this off? Or is this just like not for me and there's something that I'm missing here? Like, don't worry, I was facing all of those things during this time. But fortunately, when all the gyms closed down, I had a couple of clients online, so I had maybe a few $100 coming in a month. And I was like, you know what? I've got 2 options here. I can either just pause this and go and get a job, and then when the world comes back online, I can come back. Or I can hedge a bit of a bet on myself here and just try and launch this thing and see what happens. Because obviously people then needed home training, right? They needed home programs. They still wanted to get their nutrition right. They still wanted to like be dialed in. So I was like, you know what? I think there might be an opportunity here. Launched it, and the first couple of weeks were rough. But then all of a sudden it just started taking off, and I was like, holy moly, this is amazing. Fast forward to 2021. I don't know the exact date. I think it was early-ish in the year. I decided to leave the gym. And this was a really hard time for me, because I'd just spent probably the better half of 12 months building the Bikini Body project up. It was making some cash. But the issue is that I was working anywhere from sort of like 60 to 80 hours a week, trying to juggle both of these businesses here. And honestly, it was tiresome. Like, it was really draining. This was having a massive impact on my training, my mental health. My bank account was all over the place. My ex at the time was furious, just based on like how little I was showing up in the relationship, because I was just so spread all of the time. Like, I was consistently just like gassed out. Everything, like, it was crazy because I was trying to do everything, but nothing was really moving. So I finally got to the point during this time here where I was like, you know what, enough is enough. I need to take another bet on myself, like when I launched the program. And I was like, all right, let's just attack this. I've got a couple of $1,000s in savings. Like, I'm not even lying. I think I had maybe like $3,000 or $4,000 in savings max. My account was always pretty much at 0 the entire time of growing the business. Left the gym. Then I just got this like insane amount of urgency behind me, because I was like, whoa, okay, the safety net of my gym income, like from in-person coaching, is now gone. Whoa, I need to pull this off. And for the first 2 weeks, I was like really spun out. If we were to fast forward though into April of 22, I then ended up having my biggest month ever in the business. And that was around, I don't know the exact figure, but I know that it was 40K, because it was like an insane amount of money, the most amount of money I'd ever earned in my life. And I was like so surprised, because I thought I was probably exactly how you think you are now. I thought that I wasn't special and that I didn't have anything and that I couldn't make this happen. But when I was pulling in money like this, I was just like, holy moly, I think I've cracked the code on this. And what's insane is, during this time here, this is when I had about 100 clients on the team with no actual team supporting that. So when I say team, like just the client base, it was just me running it. I did have an appointment setter that was helping me out with like the DMs and stuff like that. But outside of that, I was just still a one-man band. And I don't really say that my appointment setter was a team member, even though they kind of were, but really it wasn't, because I was still in the DMs helping out a lot too. But this time through here, between launching the Bikini Body Project, coronavirus happening, then the gyms reopening, getting PT back up and running, then actually scaling the online business, man, it was an intense timeline. And this really taught me a lot about how to run a business, and just, it was hard. Like, it was really hard. And what's crazy is also during this time is that all of this business at this point was built purely off ads. So I wasn't into content at all, not because I didn't want to do it, but simply based on the fact that the mentor that I had at that time was just teaching all of us paid ads, and that we didn't need to use content at all because brand wasn't even really that necessary back in this time. So it was a little bit easier for me in that regard. But to be honest, the amount of money that I was spending on ads during this time frame was eating massively into this $40,000. Like, it was crazy how much I was spending on ads to acquire clients. Now, if we continue on this timeline, in March of 2022, a good friend of mine by the name of Dan was running a business very similar to what mine is now, called Cash Clock Academy. And this here, CCA, was essentially helping other online fitness coaches scale their online businesses. And I met Dan through my very first mentorship program. And what I ended up doing was I hired Dan somewhere in this period here to help me. That continued to scale my business. But then Dan started to realize that I was really skilled with marketing and ads. So he actually offered me a job. And even though this was a life-changing opportunity to work with Dan, and again, I don't regret anything here, this is when things started to go downhill for my business, because I was just agreeing to everything and anything, which we'll get to in a moment. But this was basically doing business coaching, where in this business, I think they had anywhere from 1 to 200 clients in there. Like, this thing was absolutely pumping, and I was helping them out with ads, marketing, that sort of stuff. So keep in mind, I'm running a business by myself with 100 clients, coaching them in fitness. I'm now working part-time in this business coaching company where I'm helping their clients. I started to then realize during this time that, like, wow, a lot of these coaches are getting a lot of clients, but they're not doing a very good job of actually coaching them and delivering to them. So I had this grand idea, because I thought I saw a gap in the market, to create a course called the 5-Hour Online Coach. And I launched this in June of 22. And it was funny because, I'm basically maxed out here in the Bikini Body Project. I'm then somehow managing this for my friend Dan. And then alongside that, I'm then pouring everything into building a course. And this course was to help other online fitness coaches run the back end of their business. So if you could imagine, there was so much happening at this point. And there's a book called Essentialism. And there's this graph in it that has basically changed my life, because it always comes up. And it's a great perspective shift on when it feels like we're doing so many things. We can feel like we're making a lot of progress, but all of these arrows that I'm drawing here on the screen is all of the focuses that you have when you're spread across a million different things. And you have all of these things, and there's lots of effort in all of these things going out, but you'll realize that the progress that you're making isn't very much at all. Compared to, let's just say, having one singular focus, you can make so much more progress when you're doing this. And what had happened is I had just become a yes man, and I had just taken on all of these other responsibilities that were just not necessary, and it was starting to burn me out. And it did. I ended up having a massive crash out. So after sort of June, I started to get really maxed out, and I'm like, whoa, I don't know if I can handle this. My relationship started to get really rocky, to the point where my ex left me. I was just like all over the place. And it was crazy because I was making good money, but it was just eating away at me and just basically destroying my life. Got to the point where I essentially had a crash out in December of 22, and I was like, you know what? I need to get rid of CCA. I need to get rid of this course. So I pulled the pin on both of those. But then for whatever reason, I still hadn't learned my lesson about saying yes to people. And a few people realized that when I left CCA, they still wanted help with marketing. So they reached out to me to run their ads. They were actually referrals from Dan. And they then were like, hey, can you run my ads, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, I wonder how much I can charge these people for this. And I realized that I could charge people a pretty good monthly retainer to run their ads. So I launched a marketing agency called Predictable Leads. Had a couple of clients in this. And then I started to realize like, oh, wow, maybe this could be my escape hatch that I'm looking for, because I was done. I was so tapped out in all of these things. And it's crazy, simply just out of referrals alone, this business went from 0 to 30K a month. I'm not even kidding, in like 2 months. It was wild how fast it grew. And the whole point of this video is like how overnight success isn't a thing. Even this isn't an overnight success, seeing money like that. Why? Because look at all the time here. There's like 2 years, almost 3 years, like including the PT stuff. There's already like 6 years here on the board to get to this point here where I was able to command cash like this. So someone would even see that and be like, oh, you know, that's such a quick timeline between these two to make that money. It's not, you know, there's years in the making to get to this point. So this started to pick up and I was like, all right, cool. I'm faced with a decision here. I think I need to get out of the Bikini Water project. I think I'm done with this. So in February of 23, I shut it down. Now I say in all of my other videos and content, everything else, that I closed it down in December of 2022 is because I pretty much did. I started to wind it back. I started to let clients go and I was already planning on closing it down. February was the final day where like all of the clients who had paid me in full had finished up. So I didn't have to refund anyone and then the business was just done. So during this time here, I wasn't 100% sold on doing what I do now, which is business coaching, right? Like the Freedom Coach Former, you'll see it here in June of 23. There's a gap though between these businesses. So February to June, I didn't know what I was doing and I had massive amounts of imposter syndrome stepping into what I do now. So much to the point where I wrestled with it for about 6 months. I was wrestling with it back here. Even my friend Dan was like, you should just do what I do. But I just pushed back because I was like, I don't feel qualified enough. I don't think I'm smart enough. I'm not good enough. Who's going to listen to me? All of the typical bullshit excuses that come up in your mind when you're trying to build a business or get one off the ground. So I wrestled with it and then I was like, you know what? Let's do it. Let's go for it. Let's see how we go. 2 months into that, I scaled it to 43K cash collected. So it wasn't recurring, but I did about 43 grand. And what was cool is I did that with 1,000 followers. But again, you see stats like that and you're like, whoa, that's a pretty good result. But again, we've got to zoom out. Look at this whole journey. 2015 is when I became a personal trainer and started coaching, right? I didn't, just suddenly learn marketing in a couple of days or a couple of weeks and boom, money's kicked off. There's years of reps to get to this point here. And here I am today, 2026, still doing business coaching now. I'm nowhere where I want to be. Freedom Coach does anywhere from sort of like 35 to 40K in recurring. At the moment, it's a little bit lower than that at the time of filming this, but I always end up around this point once you factor in renewals and maybe monthly payment plans and also sales. So that's kind of where the business sits at the moment. And I have all intentions over the next 12 months to scale this thing a hell of a lot bigger than what it is right now. But even when I walk myself through this timeline, it's been such a journey to get to where I am now, to make the money where I am now. And most coaches are all the way back here. They're all the way back at the beginning, generally investing in their first mentor or their third or fourth mentor, and they're still stuck, floating somewhere through this category here. Like majority of the coaches who come across sort of my desk are somewhat in this category here. I tend to attract guys a little bit more on the right side. They're in this category these days. They're doing probably 10, 15 online. Now they're trying to scale or they're trying to get out of the gym. I get a lot of guys who are still in the gym. But this season here is the hardest season to get through. They're all hard seasons, I'm not going to lie. Business doesn't just suddenly become easy. But this is the hardest season because this is where everybody doubts you. This is where your friends doubt you. Your family members doubt you, your spouse doubts you, her family doubt you, his family doubt you, whatever it is. Everyone doubts you. No one really believes in you. They say they do, but everyone's just like, this is just like a gimmicky thing. This is not going to be a thing. This is, I shit you not, the hardest season of life to go through when you're trying to build your business. But the point of this video is to show to you that you just have to push through the seasons. Every overnight success that you see is always years in the making. This timeline of mine is a pretty stock standard timeline that people go on. I know that you get exposed to the Iman Gajis and these young kids who are printing cash. Again, you don't see the years and years and years of trying before the success happens. So if you're going through a season where you aren't exactly where you want to be, maybe you're trying to get your business off the ground, maybe you're trying to go from 10 to 20 grand a month, maybe you're trying to go from 20 to 40, it's such a hard season. And trust me, I feel you on that. But you just have to push through these times, and you have to have a little bit of faith. There is light at the end of the tunnel. And if I have one final piece of advice for you in this video, is to not do what I do, is to not try and be spread across 50 different things. If I had have just stuck with the Bikini Body project a little bit longer, and if I had have just not had an ego at that time, because that's why I couldn't scale it, is my ego was holding me back from actually scaling. But if I had just held on, I probably could have continued this biggest month and just kept pushing this thing up and turned it into something massive. But what did I do? I got distracted, right, with 50 different things. And this is what happens, especially when you are not where you want to be. Things start to look shiny and seductive. You have to say no. Choose one thing, go all in on it, and give it, I'm not even kidding you, 5 to 10 years, and you'll have something incredible.